Noam Chomsky spoke to journalist Mehdi Hassan about the election, and he had some interesting thoughts on the idea of lesser evilism.
What's your message to those voters today who refuse to vote for Trump or refuse to vote to stop Trump? What's your message to them now that he's won and he's in the White House?
Same as before. I think they're making a bad mistake. First of all, there are two issues. One is a kind of a moral issue. Do you vote against the greater evil if you don't happen to like the other candidate? The answer to that is yes, if you have any moral understanding. You want to keep the greater evil out. Second is a factual question. How do Trump and Clinton compare? And I think they're very different. I didn't like Clinton at all, but her positions are much better than Trump's on every issue I can think of.
And I interviewed Slavoj Žižek, the leftist philosopher, Slovenian critic who you've criticized in the past. On this show recently, he said, in a kind of Maoist revolutionary terms, he said, Trump would shake up the system and could end up being a positive force in terms of undermining the status quo. Does he have a point?
A terrible point. It was the same point that people like him said about Hitler in the early 30s.
Because it backfires in the end.
He'll shake up the system in bad ways. What it means is now the left, instead of, if Clinton had won, she had some progressive programs. The left could have been organized to keeping her feet to the fire and pushing them through. What it'll be doing now is trying to protect rights and gains that have been achieved from being destroyed. That's completely regressive.
Look at this sellout. No, I'm kidding. To call Noam Chomsky a sellout would be maybe in the top 10 dumbest things anybody's ever said ever. So I mostly agree with what he's saying there. I'm roughly in the same position that he is. So there are a few main reasons why I rejected that argument. The idea that, well, look, maybe if Trump wins, it's better for the left and better for progressives and better for the future. Because the argument goes, well, then what you'll have is a unified left. The left will be unified, we can rebuild from the ground up, and we can all fight the battle against Trump. Whereas if Hillary won, the argument goes, well, half of the left goes to sleep and doesn't push her on anything, and so then she can get away with doing more corporatist, neoliberal bullshit. So the reason why I reject that argument is the left always rolls over. So take, for example, if that theory were true, what would have happened under Ronald Reagan? Ronald Reagan was an insanely far right-wing guy. He did horrific things. So, okay, he ended up cutting taxes on the rich and making it 27% the marginal rate. I mean, that exploded income inequality. He deregulated Wall Street. That was part of the downturn of the economy and led to the multiple crashes. It helped along later on by Bill Clinton and helped by George Bush. So, but the argument would be, well, hold on, we got Reagan, he's extreme, therefore the left is going to unify and fight against him. What actually happened? The elected Democrats, the politicians, they all rolled over because right-wingers know how to fight, left-wingers are little bitches. So the left rolled over and Reagan got to do whatever he wanted. He ran roughshod. George W. Bush. Okay, again, the idea that an extreme candidate would lead to a progressive unification and backlash. What did the Democrats do under George Bush? They gave him everything he fucking wanted. The only thing they blocked was privatization of Social Security. Everything else he got the Iraq War, he got the Afghanistan War, he got the Patriot Act. Oh, the fucking Patriot Act. So, again, that theory of an extreme character unifies the left, it's just incorrect. The opposite is true. The evidence shows the opposite is true. When you have a right-winger, an extreme character in there, they're strong characters and they run roughshod over the weak bitch-ass Democrats. I wish it were the case that a right-wing leader leads to a strong progressive backlash and then the progressives take over, but it didn't happen. It doesn't happen. So, you got Obama, for example, after Bush. Obama, very centrist-y, neoliberal, hawkish guy. So now, to get to the idea of lesser evilism, what Chomsky's saying there is, look, man, none of us wanted that choice, but that's the choice we had. Where I disagree with him, though, is and you'd have to ask him and get more detail on this, but he made it seem like he would have voted for Hillary in any state. And in fact, he said in a previous thing before the election, yeah, I would vote against the Republican candidate. But I'm a little more nuanced than him. I'm totally fine with, if you were in a safe state, if you're in California, if you're in New York like me, I voted for Jill Stein. Why? Because Jill Stein was better, and I know she had no chance of winning, but my vote doesn't count in New York because my state was going to Hillary no matter what. Just like if you live in Texas and you want to vote for Jill Stein. Yeah, go ahead, vote for Jill Stein because that state is going to the Republican no matter what. I mean, people were saying, oh, maybe that's not the case. No, nonsense. Of course it was going to go for the Republican. So if you're in a safe state, I'm fine with third-party votes. But I vote for the third party in the safe state, eyes wide open, knowing that if I was in a swing state, yeah, I would suck it up and vote for the lesser evil, because those were the only ones that had a chance of winning. It was either going to be Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton. That's it. The idea that, oh, maybe Gary Johnson might pull off a miracle or Jill Stein, it wasn't going to happen. So it's just a matter of fact that one of those two was going to win. And so you have to ask yourself, who's worse and who's better? And even if you say, well, look, I despise Hillary for 1,000,001 reasons, but do the calculation. Is she still less bad than the other guy? Because if you're given a choice between bad and less bad, you'd be crazy not to pick less bad. Now, you could try to opt out of the game and say, well, I don't want to play anymore. Okay, but then you're just dodging the issue. It's not some statement of moral superiority. It's a statement of that question's uncomfortable and I'm not going to face it, so I'm not going to answer that. Okay, well then just know you're dodging the question, and that's what it comes down to. Now, some people would argue, well, he's not as, Trump is actually the lesser evil. I just explained to you why I don't think that is. Well, I explained to you why when you get a right-wing character, the Democrats are bitches and roll over. But the reason why I think Trump actually is the worse evil is the same reasons that everybody gives, that nobody should brush under the rug because they're true. Climate change. Climate change is a fucking global catastrophe. With Hillary Clinton, you have somebody who probably wasn't going to push in the right direction much, but she wasn't going to actively go in the wrong direction, where Trump's already working on ripping up the Paris Agreement on day one. That is a disaster. He wants no regulation on the coal industry and the oil industry, and no regulation on fracking. Hillary Clinton, as Secretary of State, pushed fracking around the world. She's for more regulations of fracking than Donald Trump is. That's for sure. She's for keeping the Paris Agreement. He isn't. He said it was a Chinese hoax. Now, he softened on it recently, but I didn't want to roll the dice on a guy who sometimes believes climate change, sometimes doesn't believe in climate change, and doesn't want to do dick about it anyway. I would rather have the person who's not going to actively push us in the wrong direction. Because if you disagree with that, I don't think you get the idea of false equivalence, because that actually is a false equivalence if you say they're equally bad or something like that. They're not on that issue. They're just not. And again, if you downplay this, then I don't think you understand how serious a threat climate change is. So that was one of the big ones as to why, yeah, I think she's the lesser evil. The idea of the Supreme Court. Now, again, I'm mad at Hillary because she wants the same thing as Obama. Give me centrist judges and I'll call it a day. Give me Merrick Garland. Merrick Garland, who's a centrist judge who on some issues is conservative, like criminal justice issues, he's conservative. Okay, I hate that, but he's significantly better on race issues, like the Voting Rights Act, the Civil Rights Act, for example, which was recently gutted. He's way better on abortion and social issues, gay rights, than whoever fucking numbnuts Trump is going to pick when he repeatedly said, I want the next Antonin Scalia, who's a crazy person, who did untold damage to the country, who said blacks belong in slower track schools, is a guy who literally believes in the devil. He supported torture on the Supreme Court. It's not equal. That's not equal. Hillary's better on that issue. It's not equal. Again, taxes. So Trump says, I'm going to cut the top rate to 32% was one of his proposals, 28% was another. That's the Reagan rates. You know what that's going to do? That's going to explode income inequality way worse than it is today. He said, I want to lower wages. Hillary, I think worst case scenario, would keep the minimum wage as is. I mean, maybe, hopefully she would raise it, but, worst case scenario, it stays as is. He says, I want to lower wages. He says, he wants to make the taxes like Bush's rates on steroids. We know what happened. There was a giant economic crash after that. Hillary, worst case scenario with Hillary, she would keep Obama's rates the same. 39% marginal rate on the rich. Trump wants to cut it to 32% or 28%, depending on which day you talk to him. And he's got Republicans in the House and the Senate who can get that done. So the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. On regulation, he said he wants to eliminate the EPA and the FDA. Now, he's not going to formally do it, but he's already appointed, he wanted Rick Perry to fucking head the Department of Energy. Why? Because Rick Perry said, I want to eliminate the Department of Energy. So you head people to lead the regulatory bodies who don't believe in that regulatory body. And then they say, industry, do whatever you want. So eliminate the FDA food police, he said. Really? So fucking salmonella, E. coli outbreaks, listeria, all that, whatever, hands off. I don't believe in government regulation much. That is way, way worse than Hillary Clinton, even though I despise Hillary Clinton. And again, this is what Chomsky's alluding to here. The Muslim ban. As bad as Hillary Clinton is there any chance, a 2% chance, a 3% chance, she would say, you know what, we're going to ban all Muslims from coming to the U.S.? Trump did say that, and there's a chance he might do it. Now, maybe he won't, and I'm hopeful he won't. I'm hopeful that was just campaign rhetoric, and there's some signs he's not going to do it. But I didn't want to roll the dice, and neither should you. Deport all undocumented immigrants? By the way, I get it. Obama broke the record for deportations. There is a fundamental difference, though. Obama says, Hillary says, and it's been the Democratic position forever, yeah, I'm fine with deporting criminals, but I'm not going to take dreamers and ship them out. I'm not going to take people who are hardworking, who've been here for a while. For them, we want a path to citizenship. That is not what Trump says, and that's not what the Republicans say. That's not what they believe. They believe, no, let's get rid of all of them to the extent that we can. Now, maybe he goes back on that too, which would be great, but I didn't want to roll the dice, and neither should you. The only area where I think Chomsky is wrong is Trump is better on two issues. TPP, I actually believe him more than I believe Hillary Clinton, although, again, the jury's out on that because he could do what Hillary Clinton, what I think she would have done, which is change a few provisions and then pass it and call it something new. So he might do that, but I do think overall, I think he's better on that issue because I have more hope that he won't pass it versus her. And on the issue of Russia and Syria, he doesn't want to escalate with Russia and he doesn't want to get more involved in Syria. So I disagree with Chomsky that there aren't some issues where Trump is better. I think there are some issues where Trump is better. But yeah, the totality of their beliefs and their policies and what they want to implement, I do think that she was the lesser evil. And I do think we need to be really tough on neoliberals like Hillary Clinton. We need to be really tough on the establishment wing of the Democratic Party. But we also need to, as we do that and as we hold them accountable in a direct way, we also need to make sure we don't make shitty arguments and buy into the idea of false equivalence. Because there is, a strain of the left that's doing that now, where they'll try to say like Obama and Trump are going to be equal. Are you? Not even close, dude. Not even close. So again, there's some issues where Trump is actually better, perhaps TPP. But when it comes to, I don't know, the fact that Obama did the Cuba deal, would Donald Trump have done the Cuba deal? He already said he wants to fucking get out of this one. Obama did the Cuba deal. Obama did the Iran deal. Obama changed the overtime rule so that people making under $47,000 get overtime pay by law when it used to be $23,000. Obama continually is freeing nonviolent drug offenders in his second term. He's broken the record for pardons and commutations. So, okay, it ain't equal. Those are things that are great that Trump would never do. Now, that doesn't mean you can't hold Obama accountable when he's dead wrong, because he is dead wrong and Guantanamo Bay is still open. I would shut that down with an executive order today and say, take me to court if you disagree, bitch. He should shut down Guantanamo Bay. He should stop drone bombing 7 different fucking countries. He shouldn't be as in bed with Wall Street as he is. He needs to stop pushing for TPP. So there are areas where I vehemently disagree with Obama, and I will fucking crack skulls on those issues, and I'm not taking no for an answer. But all the facts matter. All the details matter. All the policy proposals matter. And I think when you do the math on it, you come out very clearly that somebody like Hillary Clinton, if you gave her a test, 0 to 100, she might get a 27. But Donald Trump probably gets an 8 or something like that. Obama, maybe he gets a 36. All this is still a F, by the way. Granted. F. But, again, Donald Trump probably gets like an 8. Agree with him on TPP if he sticks to his word. Agree with him on Russia and Syria. maybe a few other issues we can be hopeful, but the majority of his picks, the majority of his policies, picking Jeff Sessions to be the attorney general, who says good people don't smoke marijuana, who said a white civil rights attorney was a traitor to his race, the totality of his beliefs, the totality of his policies, the totality of his picks, it ain't pretty. And Noam Chomsky's right when he said it's a terrible point to argue, no, Trump's the lesser evil because the system will break and you'll unify the left. But that doesn't happen. Every time we get a fucking right-winger, an extreme Reagan or Bush, the elected Democrats rolled over. They rolled over and they let them do whatever they want to do. So this magical thinking of, no, this time it's different, and when there's a strong Republican, now the liberals will unify, there's zero evidence for that historically. They always roll over. So what we need to do is muster up the strength to fight, and fight either one. But it would make sense if we were fighting against the person who was less bad. Now we're fighting against the person who's more bad, who's worse, and we're in a fucking pickle. So I mostly agree with Noam Chomsky there. I think his argument is the one that makes the most sense, and it's kind of the one I believed all along, with the only hedges being, I think it's fine to vote for third parties in safe states, as I did and as I will continue to do. And the few other little things I mentioned where I disagree with him there, like Trump being better on a few issues. And though you could say, hey, those are really big issues. But overall, when you do the math, I don't think they outweigh the ones where he's objectively worse.